generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome to this month's Shoot the Sheev. This is where we gather a whole bunch of Star Wars news that happened within the month, and then we go ahead and tell you about it and some of our thoughts regarding all the different stories. We typically cover things from movies and shows, board games and card games, video games, and then we have our other section as well. We kind of mix it up what we want to start with, and I think what we're going to start with today is the other section, just because there's a interesting topic or article that came out about something that happened in the UK. So if you guys aren't aware, there was a family that was trying to get some passports so they could do some traveling, and their 7-year-old son, I think it was seven, maybe six, I'm pretty sure it was seven. 7-year-old son was rejected his passport because his name is Loki Skywalker. And the UK did not want to issue a passport without Lucasfilm's permission to put the Skywalker name on his passport. And that is ridiculous because you cannot copyright a name. You can trademark a name, so like McDonald's or Star Wars, you can trademark those things, but you can't copyright them. So needless to say, once this caught wind of the media and it got blown up, um, they gave him his passport. Needless to say. But can you imagine a family getting ready to travel somewhere and their kid gets denied their passport because of their name?
I want to know the rest of the names in this family group. Are any of them Star Wars related? How did they get this name Skywalker? Is it just the kid's middle name? Like, what in the world? How lucky are you to have that name? Or unlucky, I guess, if everybody constantly talks to you about it, it might get a little old.
It could. I mean, they must be huge, you know, like a pretty nerdy family since not only is the last name Skywalker, but we also got Loki for
Yeah.
the first name. Of course, it could be named after the God of Mischief and not just the Marvel property, but it's quite the coincidence when being paired with Skywalker.
Well, and do you think, like, if they got away with putting that on the birth certificate, which I think you need to present to get a passport, wouldn't that be proof enough that, like, okay, this name's okay to use?
You would think so. I don't understand how a name could block you from that stuff. Like your name is your name,
Yeah.
and there's nothing else you can do about that. Like
Sorry, guess you can't travel ever again. Ever.
right. I mean, there's plenty of people with the name McDonald. It's not just McDonald's is the only person that ever had that name. Or there's plenty of people with the name Wendy, but you don't see them getting, attacked from the restaurant. So I think just because this one had more attention to it with Star Wars, they were like, I don't know. And it's like, well, you idiot. Of course you don't know the law, I suppose.
What a crazy thing to happen. That poor family.
Yeah, like did their plans get all jacked up? Like did they get any sort of refund if they didn't have travel insurance and they had to delay it because of what was going on, did they get, money back for that? That I don't know any of those type of details. I just know about the name and the problem that happened when they tried to get their passport. But luckily, they are getting the passport. I did see that it was a delayed passport. So who knows if there's some other things happening in the mix, but um, yeah, hopefully they get that passport sometime soon. Um, One thing that I think is exciting, and the thing that wouldn't think this is exciting is my wallet, just because it would be destroyed from it, is that the new Jabba Sail Barge Lego set was announced. It is a huge set. I think it's over 3,000 pieces. Uh, it'll ring you up a nice $500, 500 US
Ooh.
dollars. I should clarify that. Um, but for your troubles for the 500 bucks, you could potentially get a free Lego Luke Skywalker lightsaber hilt, which, if you're not aware,
Wait, did you say potentially?
well, yeah, because if they run out of them,
Oh, okay.
but before when the AT-AT set came out, like the huge adult version of it, that they also gave out a Luke Skywalker lightsaber back then, but that was the Empire Strikes Back version. This will be the Return of the Jedi version. So it really pains me to see this practice because I think it would be awesome to have Lego Star Wars hilts to display. I mean, their Legos are cool themselves. Making lightsaber hilts is even, in my opinion, even better, and they'd just be cool display pieces. But if you have to fork over like 500 bucks to get access to it, um, that's pretty steep.
So here's the question for you, and maybe you don't know the answer, but there were some other recent popular Star Wars Lego sets that came out that I know were also of a similar caliber. How do they rank in terms of price point? And the one that comes to mind for me is the Dark Millennium Falcon, because I feel like that was a pretty big set too. Is that anywhere near in price?
I think that one was around 200 or like 180-ish.
Okay, so not even close to being up there in terms of dollars and crying wallets.
No. Um, I would say the Dark Millennium Falcon is right around the price range that the Falcon has been for years. Like whenever they release a big set that is the Millennium Falcon, it's right on par. But yeah, you can get like two to three of the Falcons for this one sail barge. But the barge is huge and you can open it up and see the insides. It comes with some cool characters. Like when we saw it was revealed, we were like, Salacious Crumb, you can get him in Lego form here if you get the sail barge. But uh, unfortunately, I don't see the sail barge in our future just because it is so expensive. But it is very cool for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to justify a Lego set that expensive uh for, the middle class average American family. Like, whew, that is a lot of money. But man,
Yeah.
would it be cool.
I mean, I even have a hard time spending like $200 on a Lego set. So, 500 is a bit steep, even though it would be an amazing piece to throw into like a man cave or something. It's definitely, what do you call that? When you put it on the coffee table, it's like a point of conversation.
Oh yeah, a conversation starter.
Yeah, definitely one of them. So how long did that take you to build?
Can you imagine if you built that and then like the dog bumped into the table or something, or like a toddler just bumped it or knocked it over? Like, not only is that all that hard work gone, but like if you lose a piece, like that's a $500 set. Oh my gosh.
Probably have to build it in isolation, is my guess.
Gonna have to put it in like a glass display cabinet or something.
Yeah. I'd probably put it in a table. That'd be kind of cool too, like a glass table.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to grow up during the prequel era? Do you wonder what type of merchandise was around then? How different was it than it is now? Check out our videos on this channel where we talk about the merchandise of the Phantom Menace and the merchandise of Attack of the Clones. They are here on this channel. The Phantom Menace is my first video ever on YouTube, so there's a special place in my heart for that one. So please, if any, check that out. Now back to our show. Where should we go next? What category, Sarah?
Ooh,
Do we go movies and shows, board games, or video games?
let's go video games.
All right. So let's get the smallest one out of the way first. I don't quite understand this move by the company, but they must have felt that there was a market for it. But Star Wars Jedi Survivor released this month on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Um,
Can
I
you
sub
explain to me what that means? I thought it was already on there.
They released on the next gen console, so they released on PS5 and the Xbox One um,
Series X?
Series X, but they did not release on the PS4 or the Xbox One. And so
Oh.
they delayed the previous generation's version of the game, and it just came out this month, which has been a while. It's been at least a good handful of months for that to come out. But I mean, there's still plenty of people that have a PS4 or an Xbox One that do not have, the next gen consoles. And so I'm sure there's a market for it. It just makes me wonder how, number one, how well do they play? How do the graphics compare? And also, were the people able to avoid spoilers? Like, is it worth playing, so to speak? But yeah, I don't
You
quite
know,
understand that strategy.
I feel like it would be a reason to try to push the next gen console. Like it's weird because when a new console comes out, sometimes there might be an exclusive game for that console, right? But to try to entice sales for you to upgrade your system. But the PS5 has been out for quite some time now. So much so that they're coming out with a new version of it, right? So now it's getting to not even be current gen anymore. Kind of.
I think it's been like 3 or 4 years. I
Yeah,
think
I
it was
think
right
you're
around
right because it
COVID
was right
time.
around 2020 or 2021, 2020, somewhere in there. But we're far enough away from that console release that I don't really see that being a deal breaker for you to or not a deal breaker, excuse me. I don't see Jedi Survivor as being a reason to get the next gen console. But then at the same time, why wouldn't you just release it on the PS4 at the same time like all the other games are doing right now? Because they
Probably
haven't phased
one.
it out yet.
My only guess is to recoup some of their money and then take some of that money to throw into the previous gen. That way they don't have to put up all the money up front, is my guess.
Could be.
Or
But they sure did take their sweet time.
maybe they did release it on PS5 first and the Xbox Series so that they could push people to get the new console. And then they came out with this later for those that didn't make the jump. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of possibilities.
Yeah. That point right there was what I was trying to make, but you seem to have put it in a much easier to understand way.
Let's see, what other game, what's more exciting news, in my opinion, in the video game realm? Um, well, Ubisoft has come out and talked about, their first month of release with Outlaws. We did play it here on the channel. You can check all that stuff out from the main story. Um, Ubisoft came out and said that, the game did underperform compared to their estimates, which is unfortunate in my opinion because I at first I was unsure about the game, but by the time I finished it and started playing some of the side missions, I really enjoyed the game. And so when I do enjoy games, my hope is that the company, can make money from it and then see that maybe we want another one and then they start making a sequel or a game that would be kind of like Outlaws. And so it does pain me a little bit to see that they didn't do so hot.
Do you
But
think the reason for that is because of the issue they had at launch for the people that were able to have early access that had their data erased? Because if I heard about that, I'd be a little nervous about getting the game. Like, why would I invest time into a game that's going to erase my data?
I would say yes and no. I would think the people that heard about that but then didn't hear how it was fixed, I would see how they would avoid it. Um, But if the audience that heard that also heard that there was a patch immediately that would fix it, I mean, that should fix that issue. Yes, I still had crashing issues, but I never had the issue where the game itself, had to start all over. Um, I was gonna say what probably also deterred people is just the toxicity on social media about the game. Like there were so many people that were talking about how ugly they thought the main character was, which I think is outrageous.
Ouch.
Some of the parts, graphics, like the way it looks, um, there's definitely parts in the game where that needed some polish. Because there's times where the main character Kay Vess, like her and her hair looks great. There's other times where it looks like she's wearing a towel because the way that her hair is not always in that like super high definition where we can see, the strands of her hair. And so I think they're fixing some of those things along the way, but that deterred people. Um, but also, when some of those reviews came out, a lot of what was talked about was that the game is very repetitive. And I did go into detail on a video of my thoughts about Outlaws in general. But the way that I would describe the repetitiveness is kind of like if you do one mission, we'll call that what you did in mission one was A. And then if you go to mission two, you do A, B, meaning that you repeated what you did in the first one, but you expanded on it a little bit. And then when you get to C, or when you get to the third mission, it's A, B, C. So it starts to feel repetitive because, yes, you're doing a lot of the things you've done in the past, but then it's growing, only a little bit as time is going on. So that kind of hindered it a little bit as well. So there's a lot of things that could have went into it, but um, ultimately it did underperform. They did come out and let everybody know that if you bought the season pass or if you plan to just buy the DLC individually in the future, they do have their first story pack coming out on November 21st. It is, I forget what it was called, but it's the one where you like investigate a high stakes sabacc tournament and Lando is a part of it. And so um, you
That'll
get
be
to
nice to see a familiar face.
Yeah, I've heard that, you can encounter Lando in other parts of the game, like the free part of it. Well, not free, the base part of the game. But this isn't a mission that emphasizes, hanging out with Lando. Um, Another thing that's going to be added to the game, and this is free to all players that have bought the game, not just season pass players, but new contracts will be added to the game. So if you don't know what those are, essentially it's just jobs you can do in the game, right? Someone needs you to go steal this, someone needs you to take out this person, whatever it is. Um, that's what those are, and they're adding in more so that there's more things to do in the game. So it is nice to know that they recognize the game underperformed because of XYZ, and they are trying to make the game as best as it can be as the life of the game goes on with the new DLCs that are dropping. And I look
So,
forward to them.
question for you on those new contracts. Do you, and maybe you don't know, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Do you know, is it more of the same type of missions, just slightly different? Or is it integrating new ways to play, like a completely different style mission than what you may have done before?
That I have no idea. All it said was that there's going to be new contracts. So we'll have to wait and see for sure.
Well, fingers crossed for some different type of missions then, so it's not so monotonous.
Yeah. The last piece of information within the video game category, Star Wars Hunters, a game that unfortunately I played season one and then I didn't play season two, and I probably won't play season three just because I'm wrapped into so many other games right now. It's hard to keep up with all of them. But they did drop season three, and it is called Echoes of the Rebellion. It is themed after Hoth. And so I thought that was pretty cool. If you watch the little trailer, you can see the new map that they built that basically throws you into the middle of the Hoth battle with the AT-ATs all over the place and stuff. Um, there will be a new paid arena pass character, which is an Ewok named Pillbush. Uh, I thought the character was pretty cool. The Ewok essentially moves around by riding in a miniature ATST. But I also saw that you can get different skins to change up what it is that the Ewok is riding on. So that's pretty neat. There will be Rebel Alliance themed skins for the current characters, and then there will also be new shop bundles, new events, and new ranked rewards. So essentially, there's going to be a lot of new content. If you spend the $10 or whatever it is to get the arena pass, you're going to get a lot of content to play with over the next couple of months. So if I had the time, I would definitely go back and play more, but unfortunately, this one got the chopping block.
The Hoth thing I think is pretty cool because I remember back to my Battlefront days on the PS2 and playing in the Hoth trenches and whatnot. So that, I feel like that brings some nostalgia back for me.
Yeah, I also thought that about the Rebel Alliance clothing. So like even though the characters themselves aren't really Rebel Alliance type characters, like can you imagine if there's a Jawa outfit that is wearing the orange pilot suit? That sounds kind of ridiculous, but
Yeah,
um,
it does.
if it's there, it's probably gonna be fun.
I feel like that'd almost be in Hoth, you'd almost want to choose like the whitest style clothing just to blend in with the snow. Make yourself harder to see.
That could probably be a whole other issue in itself, though, because they're gonna be like, "Well, it's pay to win because if you buy the one where you blend in with the crowd, the environment, we can't see you." Oh, okay. I've heard a lot of that from like Battlefront or not Battlefront, Call of Duty and Fortnite with different
Yep.
skins where they
Oh
people
yeah.
blend in. So I can definitely see that being a problem. Moving on to board games. So, we don't play the games that we're going to be talking about here, but it is worth noting that there is new stuff. There was a new expansion for Shatterpoint that was revealed, which is the little miniatures tabletop game. We haven't gotten into it because it's kind of pricey. It's expensive. And even though we buy tons of board games, that's quite the investment. But this new expansion is called We Don't Need Their Scum, and it will include Boba Fett, Dengar, Bossk, and IG-88. So essentially,
Hmm.
we're getting a bounty hunter expansion to the game.
I
Uh,
like the unique name
for the four characters you're gonna get, how much do you think it'll cost?
for like tabletop miniature size characters.
Yep,
What I would want to pay is like $20. What I think it's actually going to cost is 40.
$50 is gonna be
Ooh.
the expansion. So if $50 isn't quite the price point for you, look for it on sale. But it
I
will
mean,
come out.
you can get full color like painted 6-inch figure like action figures for that kind of price. That's crazy.
Yeah. As far as I know, it will release November 1st. So if you do play Shatterpoint, that could be a cool expansion for you. The other thing within the board games realm that I thought was pretty interesting, this one actually like snuck through the cracks with me. Like I never heard about it as far as the release, and so I was kind of shocked when I saw it. But there was a game that came out a while back called Star Wars Rivals, and it's a little game where you have little Funko characters of Star Wars, and it's like a two versus two type scenario where you pick two villains and someone picks two heroes, and then you go at it. We bought the base game. Actually, haven't played it yet, unfortunately, just because we've been playing other things. But what I want to say that's striking to me, because this news is that there's a series 2 that came out, and I didn't know that. And so you can get a whole new starter pack where it comes with four characters: Darth Maul, Balin from Ahsoka, Qui-Gon, and Ahsoka. But what's interesting to me is that whenever we go to the store, the display boxes are always filled with the characters. It looks like nobody is ever buying this game. And so it shocks me that Series 2 came out. My guess is they're like, we have a plan for Series 1, 2, and maybe 3. And Series 2 was already in production when 1 came out. So, I mean, did they just dump this to the market to see if they could sell it? I don't quite understand.
It very well could be, because the only other time that I've seen Series 1 look empty at all, and even then, I'm using that term very loosely. I just mean it looks like it was actually touched at least once. But that was when they were in clearance. Like it wasn't even just during like the first product launch or anything like that.
And the thing is, I think if I remember correctly, that clearance price was like $1 off. And so
Yeah,
that
it wasn't very cheap.
it didn't really move the price point to get those things to move off the shelves. So maybe they'll have some really cool figures and characters coming out for Series 2. In my opinion, the starter pack is way more enticing than the one that came out in the first place. I think the original was Vader and Ventress, and then Obi-Wan and Commander Cody. So
Oh, for
this
some
could
reason, I
be,
thought Luke was part of it.
maybe it was Luke. I don't know. I don't
I thought it
remember.
was Luke and Vader were like the two front pictures.
Oh, then maybe it was Luke and Cody. I know there was a clone trooper in there. That kind of makes more sense because Luke and Vader would be like the original trilogy characters, and then Ventress and Cody would be the Clone Wars characters. So that's you're probably right on that. Maybe Obi-Wan was a blind box character.
Hmm.
But yeah, supposedly Series 2 is out. When I went to investigate this, Target told me that I could add it to my cart right now and then have it shipped to me. So um, if you see it in the stores, great, check it out. If you are a big fan of Star Wars Rivals, let us know why in the comments. I want to know why this game is exciting, what kind of mechanics make it fun. Just because, like I said, we haven't gravitated to it, and that's why we haven't played it. And I want a reason to, just because it's Star Wars, it's cool. Okay, our last section, movies and shows.
Oh, hold
So,
up now.
oh,
There's one more board game thing I want to say. We kind of touched on it last month, but and you might have to help me with the name of this here, but the new Mandalorian storybook game, I don't know what it's actually called.
I don't remember what it's called either.
Okay, well, there's a new Mandalorian storybook game. It's a lot like the Ravensburger ones, like the what is it, Princess Bride, Lord of the Rings, Wizard of Oz, except it's not made by Ravensburger this time, it's made by somebody else. Um, we touched base on this before, but it actually came out this month. So we have it and we will be playing it and hopefully doing some sort of content on the channel in the near future on this game because I am very excited to play. And I know Jeremy is too.
I'm very excited too. Needless to say, it was the channel's anniversary this month, which also meant it was my birthday because I launched the game or the channel on my birthday years ago. And we got a lot of board games for my birthday, so we're kind of making our way with playing all the different ones. So hopefully sooner rather than later for the Mando one, because I'm very, very excited for it. Have you ever wondered what Amazon coffins are and what they're full of? Well, we got you covered here on the channel. Check out our playlist of our Amazon coffin unboxings where Sarah and I open up boxes that have Amazon returns and we share with all of you what we get in each of those boxes. If you ever wanted to get into liquidation and want to know what types of things you can find, check us out. Now back to our show. Um, any others before we transition to the movies and shows?
Go right on ahead.
Okay, so um, as you may know, there is a Rey film that is in development at Lucasfilm. Supposedly, we got some news that that movie is now on hold. Um, According to Daisy Ridley, she has come out and said that, she believes that this story that she was presented with is a story worth telling. And so, um, you know, maybe it's going to be a really good film. Hopefully, it's not something that Daisy just has to say. But Unfortunately, that movie is on hold at the moment. How long, we don't really know. Because I think it was supposed to come out in 2026. There were supposed to be two Star Wars movies in 2026, one in May, one in December. And then I think there was a third film in development for 2027. But if this is on hold, it can be pushed back even further. Um,
Part of me wonders if this has anything to do with, and I strongly believe it does, the Acolyte and the poor performance of that show because it bombed and all of that. I know they say bad press is still good press, but it was some pretty bad press revolving that show, and it probably shook a lot of people's confidence in just Lucasfilm in general with any of their new projects coming out. I know it
yeah,
made me nervous.
especially with the way that the sequel trilogy has been received amongst fans. It's very, very mixed. And, Star Wars put their movies on hold. And so the next movie that they put out, which is most likely going to be the Mando movie, I mean, they want it to be a banger. They want it to make money. They want people to want to go back to the theaters for Star Wars. And, let's say that the Mando movie is great, and then the Rey movie ends up not being what people wanted, or people just don't show up because they don't want any more sequel trilogy content. Well, then that's going to send another mixed message to Lucasfilm. Um, because I truly believe it was a big mistake to put a halt to the movies. I don't think that the reason that the movies didn't do as well as they hoped was because they rushed them. I think it's because they just mishandled them and they didn't put the care that they were supposed to. So we'll just have to see. I mean, usually, the more development time, the better it'll end up being because it can be more, flushed out. But we'll have to wait and see. So, if you are a fan of the Bad Batch, you might be very, very excited for this news because, baby, they are back in
What?
comic book form.
Oh no. Jeremy, why you gotta jerk my leg like that?
Hey, I got your heart up to here, and then went right back down to here.
You took it, you picked it up, and then you threw it right on the ground.
The Bad
Not that
Batch.
there's anything wrong with comic books. I do enjoy a good comic book, but it's very, very rare I will actually take the time to pick one up and read it. I know, it's a fault of mine. I admit it. But I was excited you were going to say it was going to be a TV show. We're in the TV show and movies section of this podcast. I thought it was going to be one of those.
Not quite. It's in the section because the Bad Batch has been known for its show. But yes, they will be having their own comic book series coming out in January. The first one is going to be called Ghost Agents. I did not hear where this falls in the timeline because, depending on where it is, Crosshair could be part of their group or he couldn't be part of their group. Like if it's early on, is it when he's with the Empire? Who
Is
knows?
Tech in there?
I don't know. All I saw was a cover, like the cover of the comic book. Um, but I don't remember. Uh,
I miss my boy Tech.
let's see. Bad Batch, Ghost Agents. Let's see who's on the cover. I'm pretty sure I saw Wrecker. So we got Wrecker, we got Tech, we got Crosshair, and we got um, Hunter on the cover. So it kind of makes me wonder if this is like a prequel or like a story before the series. Like maybe it's what was happening during the Clone Wars, just because Omega's not on the cover with them. And also Tech is around, so it has to be before what happened to Tech in season two, which is when Omega was with the group. But if
Yep.
she's not with the group, then that means it has to be before even when the show premiered. So I don't think they've talked too much about the what's going to happen in it, just the fact that they will be back in their own new medium. Just because a lot of people loved Clone Force 99. I mean, they're a charismatic group, they're fun to watch, and it's definitely one of those where if Disney recognizes that the show is popular, how can we make more money? sell comic books.
It
So
makes me wonder if it'll be even pre Order 66. Because with Crosshair being part of their group, not that because
that would be
he had some issues, right? So it
a
makes me
little
wonder if
snippet.
it's going to be before that.
Could be. Yeah, he had his own little snarkiness to him even before Order 66, but something tells me it will be before that. I'm not quite sure. Of course, like I said, I don't know when it takes place, but just based on the cover, my guess is it'll be before Order 66. Um, our last piece for today and for the month is, if you're not aware, there was a new Lego Star Wars special that dropped on Disney Plus called Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. It is a four 20-minute episode miniseries. Um, and it's the one where the Dark Millennium Falcon is inspired by. So we were talking about that Lego set earlier. And what essentially this show is, without giving away too many spoilers, is it's about these two brothers. They come across a Jedi temple that was hidden, and they essentially grab a brick that alters the timeline of Star Wars completely and basically takes what we know and love and flips it on its head. And so the things that people have theorized about, like Jar Jar being a Sith, is in it. We get Dark Rey. We get the white suited Darth Vader as a Jedi, which I think that's a Black Series figure as well at one point. Um, we get Jabba the Hutt as being on the Jedi Council. We get who was another one that was on there that was funny? I think Palpatine was part of the Jedi Council. So yeah, it's a completely different perspective of how the characters play out in the Star Wars universe. It is a fun little thing to watch. Um, I don't know. So just getting your opinion on this too, because we watched this with our nephews. Do you think our nephews enjoyed it? Because I feel like to a point they were interested, but at the same time they probably wanted to watch something else.
I don't think they're invested enough into Star Wars to put enough attention to understand what's going on. I think part of what makes they know enough about Star Wars that this almost being like an alternate universe, I think was probably confusing for them, which made it hard to follow. Like, wait a minute, why is Darth Vader all of a sudden a good guy? Like that's
Which is actually
confusing.
that's one of the questions they asked too.
Hmm.
So,
So I think if they had a Lego version of like the original trilogy or really any of the trilogies, I think they would enjoy that a lot more than what we watched, just because of the confusion factor from a kid's perspective. If they'd never seen Star Wars at all, then you wouldn't be confused because you just would be watching whatever it was and taking it for what it is. But um, I mean, they're what, 6 and 9, I believe, or 6 and 8, somewhere around
mhm.
there. I'm really bad at keeping track of ages.
It's 9.
But anyway, that general age group, yeah, I feel like they weren't super engaged with it.
I do think it is so, usually at least what I think people would think about this show. My guess is when someone sees Lego attached to it, they're gonna think, "Oh, that's a children's show." But I think I do agree with you in the sense that this show was probably more for the adults, especially since the adults are the ones that theorize about Jar Jar being a Sith, right?
Yeah.
And so if a kid sees that, they're like, "What in the world? That's so silly." But yet the adults that have these theories about what is going on in the Star Wars universe, they're like, oh, that's what they're playing into. Not to mention, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek humor where like you really have to be listening to hear these like sly comments that they're saying or puns from Star Wars. Um, I forget which one it was, but I even said to my nephew, like, um, they had made a comment about something being about a brick, and I was like, "Do you get it? Brick because they're Legos?" And then they're like, "Oh, I get it. That's funny." So it's funny that they're when they're not used to puns like that, um, it takes a little bit of assistance to see the humor in some of this stuff. So. I think maybe that could also be the perspective of, someone's kid wants to watch this. How can we engage the adult so that it's still a fun experience for the adult to watch it with their kid? And that could be it, all these small little things. So,
One of the things I was just looking up was a note. Do you remember about Salacious Crumb being in there?
yep,
And he was,
he was well, from what I saw, he was like the chancellor. He's swapped out with Palpatine.
yeah.
So that's kind of a funny thing too. Like all these different things that were being switched up. Another prime example was like the Battle of Hoth. They completely switched the planets. So now the AT-ATs were marching on a lava planet when they were doing the attack. So a lot of flips of different things that happen. I wish they would have explored the salacious thing a little bit more, but really what he was a part of was when things were going haywire, it was kind of like a montage of different things that were occurring and changing, and we never really got to expand on what was happening there.
Even just what you just explained about the Battle of Hoth versus Lava Planet, kids aren't going to pick up that that's what that's supposed to be.
Right. So, I don't know. I think it was worth watching. I thought it was entertaining. It is available if you have Disney Plus, but yeah, definitely check it out with the kiddos if you have any or nephews like us. But otherwise, it's also a fun watch just to watch as an adult because of all the small pieces that you can pick up along the way. But so that's our news for the month for our Shoot the Sheev. Make sure to check back here next month at the end of October for the October news for Star Wars. But in the meantime, if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you like the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the news stories that we covered for the month. And if there's any that we missed that you thought is worth noting, drop it in the comments. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.